What's going on, guys? My name is Kev. I sell creator operating systems to entrepreneurs and content creators to help automate their entire social media. And it's absolutely exploding my AI agency. But one of the biggest offers that we have inside of the operating system is a system that can send up to 10,000 outbound messages a month across all social platforms. But the best part about the system is that it changes the game for marketing because it does what's called warm outbound, which is something that marketers and businesses have never seen before. And in this video, guys, I'm going to try my absolute best to explain exactly how it works and how we implement it for every business. And so the first thing I want to do, guys, is just show you my working example for my own life. And so inside of my Creator OS on the right-hand side, I have 3 active agents that are currently working for me. And I'll explain each one and how it helps my business. So the Twitter outreach agent scrapes every single person that has ever liked any one of my Twitter posts, and then it sends them DMs about my actual Creator OS offer. And it does that in bulk. But then when the DMs are sent, it actually is shown in my Creator OS operating system, which allows my AI agents to actually study and gain analytics on all of this inbound traffic. What it also allows us to do is hire human in the loops to actually wait for these inbound messages to come in and start closing people. And so here you can see on July 2nd, it was firing off the first campaign and we started to get responses like this guy, Kenny. And then my human in the loops came onto my Creator operating system and then actually booked in a call for me. And then I hopped in and I said, great. I was actually just testing the system. Actually, I'm going to move my thing here. And I basically just said, great. I was just testing the system to see that it was working well. And I'm going to make a whole masterclass on how to actually build operating systems. And I'm releasing each different step of the masterclass step by step. And so I showed you guys in the last video how to build the entire social media operating system part of the engine. And in this video, you're just going to see exactly how I'm doing the 10,000 outbound messages a month, how the entire system works, all the tools that I use, and obviously why it's so powerful for businesses. So first thing that we want to talk about, guys, is just the simplified explanation of how this thing actually works. Because in all honesty, even though we found out a really big hack in marketing, it's much simpler than I make it out to seem. So the first thing that needs to happen is content production. And most likely these businesses that you're working with have already produced tons and tons of content. So if you're working with an Instagram brand, for example, they probably have 100,000 likes worth of engagement that we can then scrape and feed our operating system. The operating system then tracks the engagements in real time. And then that allows our AI agents to actually perform marketing campaigns on top of these engagements. So whether a user likes, comments, shares, lands on your profile page, clicks on your bios, lands on your websites, we can scrape all this data or add pixels to then retarget these people in the future. And we previously had to do all of this manually with human in the loops, but now we can just automate the entire system. And once the agents actually perform their marketing campaigns, it gets stored once again in the operating system, which is what I showed you guys in my early example. So this allows us to create an ecosystem that actually improves over time for every single client. And it does what's called warm outbound, which is something that people have never seen. And so let's talk about the actual system in a little bit of a higher level here. So the user connects to your operating system and you determine the goals of the business. Maybe they want to book more calls because most of their business is done with high ticket sales. Maybe it's a low ticket offer, so they want direct sales from the content that's being produced. So that's most likely going to happen in the DMs or with good call to actions in their content, and we can help them with that production. But what's going to happen no matter what is that we're going to scrape the likes, scrape the followers, and scrape the comments on all social platforms. And step 3 allows us to feed step 4, which is firing up the outbound AI agents to go and do their work. And so after the AI agents send out these DMs, those messages then get displayed in the operating system like I showed you guys. Then we can hire human in the loops to then go inside of the social messages page and start responding to all those DMs. And then we actually track the human in the loops as well. And that's how we can improve not just the AI, but also the people that are closing on our behalfs. And then the beautiful thing about Creator OS is a network effect, because we already have multiple DM closers. And so you can literally be plugged and played right into the system. And in a future video, I'm going to explain how the chief management agent allows us to actually track all of these different agents and all of this different analytics in a much faster way. But but we have to take things step by step. And in my opinion, this is one of the most powerful things that I can show you guys. And so I got to go where the value is. And this right here is what you guys need to see. So now let's just talk about the actual tools that are needed and the actual throughput that's going to be created per month. This is all legitimately calculated and it's all actually working in real time. You guys saw the messages statistics on my actual application, but that's because I just launched it for my own operating system only a week ago. And now I'm making this video, so in a couple of months, you're gonna see how many messages have been sent in total. But what we're seeing on the screen now is a complete breakdown of each social platform that we already are offering in our operating system to go out and do the 10,000 messages. So with Twitter, you can go from anywhere like from 50 to 80 messages a day outbound. So that ranges from 1,500 to 2,400 messages a month. And what we're doing is we're scraping the warm engagements from our likes, our retweets, our saves. Because these are people that already know we exist, are already aware of our offer. And so sending them a DM has an increased likelihood of them closing. But another massive aspect of this that goes overlooked is that since someone has liked your page and commented, it means that they're just a cold fan. But if you send them a message, you literally turn them into a warm fan. And that means they're going to interact on your posts in the future even more. And that also helps your algorithm when you post organic content go more viral. And we'll talk a little bit more about how I'm starting to see that on LinkedIn already, but we'll get there when we get there. So with the Twitter scraping agent, you're going to need 3 tools, and I have all of the blueprints in the academy for you, and I'm going to make individual tutorials as well. And so the tools that you need for the Twitter agent workflow is a phantombuster agent to go and send the messages and scrape the engagements. I want to track all of the analytics on something like N8N because you can set up a schedule to go and check the performance of your phantombuster agents. And then all of that information can be stored in your AI operating system. And those are built on Replit, Lovable, Cursor, Cloud Code, whatever you want. Now, the next one is the Instagram scrape and outreach agents. The beautiful thing about Instagram, guys, is that you can send up to 200 new outbound messages a day. And the amount of likes that you get on Instagram compared to other platforms on average is usually higher. And so you typically have a lot more leads to DM on there, and the throughput is allowed to be higher. But what was interesting about Instagram in the past is that through their API, we weren't allowed to actually send messages to new people. Meaning our AI agents actually never had the ability to send Instagram DMs on our behalf. And so what our agency was doing for the time being was hiring the human in the loops that were closing the DMs to also send DMs on Instagram, which was very time consuming and wasn't cost efficient at all. And so now with a new tool called Warmwind, we can use the exact same workflow as the Twitter and LinkedIn agents, but then we give those leads to our Warmwind agent to go and send those DMs. You guys are going to be getting a complete tutorial for that when the time is ready for it. Now, the next tool, guys, is the one that I'm currently scaling quite fast with my own offer, and that is the LinkedIn Connections agent and the LinkedIn Outreach agent. So these are 2 separate workflows. The first workflow can send up to 25 connection requests every single day with a drip campaign of messages. So this could be reaching out to your target market, right? So the exact target market that you're selling your product to, and building up those connections and building up rapport with them over time. That can only do 750 connections a month, which is still pretty decent. But then when you have all of these connections, you can start sending more messages to them. And so a couple of our clients actually already have thousands of followers on LinkedIn. And so they can send up to 3,000 messages a month just with their already existing connections, which brings their total on LinkedIn to 3,700 per user. And so in total, the actual number is something like 12,000 messages that could be sent across these 3 platforms. But I mean, okay, you guys get the gist. It doesn't really matter. So what is warm outbound? So previously, cold email, advertising, phone calling, cold calling, all of this stuff, even door knocking, all of that is just fundamentally cold, right? Cold. But I think that's actually going to change forever. And the way that trust is built now comes from content first. Whether you see someone in an ad a billion times, whether you saw their content a million times, these are the new ways that sales are being created. And that's why affiliates and influencers are very, very valuable right now. But that's also why this new warm outbound strategy is game changing. Because if a client comes to you now and says, hey, I'm having difficulty scaling my Instagram, scaling my TikTok or whatever, they're focused on direct sales. They're just focused on creating content, and that content creating sales or creating booked calls. And so when you're on a sales call with your future clients and you ask them how many likes that they've generated across their platforms, and they're like, oh, I don't know, like a couple 100,000, you're like, bro, we literally have a whole year of outbound messaging just from the likes that you have. And then we can automate your content and add more agents and all this other stuff. And so that's the other part about the operating systems, guys, is that they improve over time, which is just ridiculous, right? So once you have all of this working, that is just the base offer. And then they're gonna ask for different improvements based on their actual business model. And so like if we look inside of my operating system, for example, and we go inside of my active AI agents, the other agents that I have active right now help my YouTube channel workflows. So one of them turns my long form videos into short form videos. The other one creates my thumbnails. And so like we can literally open this up and see how it works. Like I've generated an unbelievable amount of images already and trained a bunch of different models. And the same thing with the short form video. And you guys have that code base in the academy as well. And so these agents will be rolled out over time, more and more so depending on who we're helping. And that's why we also have a demo interactive page for future clients to actually see what we're offering, because I don't even use everything that we're offering, because I don't need everything that we're offering, right? But people want to see everything that's available. And so creating like a full AI agents page is really, really beneficial for your operating system when you're selling. And so that's how it's going to change the game. And I'm telling you for a fact, it's going to become saturated quite soon. This is not something that, is going to last forever. I think in the next like 6 to 8 months, everyone's going to be sending warm outbound, and then it will just become, kind of saturated, and then there's no points to continue. And by that time though, we'll have already found the next thing. And so in a nutshell, this is really all that your clients see. They see that you're human in the loops, you're closing the DMs that are responding, and then they're also seeing the AI agent performance overviews. And then we also have industry averages that we can show on the screens, right? So the industry average for the LinkedIn outreach agent across Creator OS users is 25%. And so if that starts dipping below that amount, then we know that we got to improve that agent's workflow for their offer. And so now, guys, I'm just going to show you every single workflow. I don't have time to build the entire tutorials for these. I'm pretty sure that since AI is moving so fast, a lot of you already know N8N and how to use all of this stuff. So I'm just going to show you guys at the high level for the time being. But when I have more time, the slower tutorials will be rolled out in the academy. So the first workflows that we want to talk about, guys, is LinkedIn. And with LinkedIn, I'm actually going to show you an example from one of my clients on Creator OS. And so we're going to actually head into Replit to start things. And the good thing about the LinkedIn workflows that I'm showing you guys is that there's already tutorials for those step by step. And so once you learn the LinkedIn workflows with the tutorial that we already have, then it can become much easier for you to implement the other ones because it uses the same tools. And so this is Insurance OS, which has been built for an insurance agency. And if we head into the active AI agents, we have this same connections agent that's working just the same way that I have my connection agent. But since both of these guys have 8,000 plus followers on LinkedIn, we can also send 80 messages a day to all of their existing connections for the next 100 days. And that should create a lot of sales. And so I'm going to show you both of those workflows. And so the way that we set up both of those workflows for LinkedIn is through phantombuster. And so we got both of them to connect their phantombuster accounts. Then we started to do the scraping. So the first thing that they wanted was clients to do the connection outreach to. And so they sell a specific type of insurance. And so we then spoke about the types of scraping that we should do to set up those agents to go and send those connections. And so I'm going to block out some of the names because it's confidential here, but this is essentially what we did to do that scrape. And in a future video, I'm actually going to show you guys step by step, once we deliver this operating system, how we actually built the entire thing for them. But what this allows us to do is then scrape, 1,682 different leads. And that allows us to then feed his connection agent with these leads. And then it's going to run for 1,682 divided by 25. So if we do that number in the Google real quick, we have two months and about a week of connection outreaches going out. And then that's going to allow us to scrape all of that data. So then once we set up those likes and we put it into a list, we can then start sending out connections. And so here is his connection agent, which is running already. And here we can see the report of it and how it's going on. So 46 invites sent, 13 has been accepted. And then we fire up the phantombuster API to then get this data and map it into our operating system so that our clients can see it, because this is still on the back end. So then we put that information in the workflow called the LinkedIn scraping agent, which actually happens on make.com. Now it's easier to implement this one on make.com. I also have N8N and I use it, but make.com makes this so simple. And so here we can see a couple of the Phantom agents that are currently running. And so when we open this up, every single day, this agent works. And you can see on the right-hand side, it checks for that specific day's results. And it sees how the agent is performing on that day, and it stores it inside of the Insurance OS database. And so if we open up the most recent run here, and we look at the results in the JSON step, we can see that the day collection is mapped the exact same information that we're seeing on the front end. And so we know that this end-to-end workflow is working for his connection agent. And then we did the exact same thing for his existing audience. So this agent here is a screenshot of all of the followers that he's generated since June 26th, 2025. And then in 3 months from now, once we send all of those messages, he'll probably have like 9,000 connections. So then we can send another campaign to those 1,600 connections that we just generated. And so once Insurance OS goes live, then both of those agents are going to be running. Right now, I just have to start it to get it going, but I have chosen not to. But basically, that's all that has to happen for both of the workflows. And then they get mapped inside of the database. And so in total, that's going to do 3,150 messages for his LinkedIn account. Now, the next one, guys, we want to talk about is Twitter. And for the Twitter one, it's again happening on phantombuster. And so we can talk about my workflow on this one because I had enough likes on Twitter to actually start this workflow. And so the agent right above it was the tweet likers export. And so what I did was I went on my Twitter, I scraped all of my posts, I put it into that Twitter scraper agent. It then scraped all of the likers and all of the comments and all of the shares of that post. And then we fed it to the outbound Twitter messenger. So if we open up the setup of this messenger and we see the activity, we can see that this thing has been running for about a week. And we set it up to send 8 messages every single time it launches. And it launches 6 times a day, which is 48 messages a day. Great. And here on the back end, we can see so far that it's sent 312 messages. Now on my platform, it only says something like 150 messages because I didn't map it in until it actually started to work. And so once I started seeing it working, I mapped it into the operating system. And that's why the operating system only has like 150 of these messages. So then once again, the agent was live on phantombuster. So then I grabbed that phantombuster API. And then this time I actually built it on N8N. And so very simple workflow, guys. And this is again why I say like when you see those crazy workflows, I'm telling you, they're fucking useless. But anyways, what this workflow does is it just triggers once a day. It checks for the performance of the Twitter agent, which is the get output request. And then it just stores it in the database. And if we look at the executions in the past, and if we scroll down to the bottom here, we can see that we basically just started this thing on July 2nd. So it's only been 3 days of storing information in the database and it already is storing like hundreds of messages. But this one little step creates an unbelievable user experience because then they don't have to look everywhere to see any of this information. And since it's being stored in this database, which is this little elephant, I can show you guys a little teaser, which is the chief management agent, which has access to that table in the database, which is the social messages. So then we can go and review it and see how everything's performing and go and review how the Twitter agent's performing, the LinkedIn agent, etc. So it's going to be ridiculous. But we have to work on this workflow first so that the data is actually being stored. And so if you guys are working on your operating systems, another thing that's really important is that you actually need to start generating some content and storing some data in there so that you can actually show how the system's working when you display it to people. All right, guys, so now this one's the Instagram scrape to Warmwind OS. This is basically like very groundbreaking stuff because this one bypasses an API restriction, which is the Instagram restriction. And so what we do here is we trigger this agent to run once a day, once a week, depending on how much content we're creating. And it scrapes all the likes and comments on our posts. And then we store that in a spreadsheet and the database. And the reason why we do a spreadsheet and a database is because the Warmwind agent actually needs the spreadsheet to see the leads, and then it needs Instagram to send the messages. So then when the Warmwind agent gets activated, it'll then send out those messages. And so at a high level, this is how Warmwind kind of operates, where it sees its own computer and completely knows how to use it. And so if we give it the Google Sheets access and we name it like like July 5th leads for Instagram, and then we give it to Instagram, we can tell it exactly what to do to send these outbound messages to those leads. And so you guys are going to get an actually really in-depth tutorial with Warmwind, but since they have a lot of people on the waitlist right now, I'm not going to roll that out. But for the time being, you could still do the Instagram workflow, because this scrapes and stores the leads of the people that have liked your posts or your clients' posts. And so you can just hire your human in the loop to go out and send those messages and close the conversations. It'll be a little bit more expensive, but at the end of the day, if a creator's already making content at scale and is getting a lot of engagement, then it doesn't really matter, because it's going to work so freaking well. People love getting inbound messages of people that they're fans of. And so the last thing I want to show you guys is actually the creator operating system working with this actual workflow. And so I'm going to head over to the social messages page, and we're going to scroll down, and we can see that these messages were sent on July 2nd. That's crazy. Today's July 5th, right? So I'm just going to go and scroll up and click refresh messages. All right. So we just got the refresh back, guys. And if we scroll down, actually, even if we look on Instagram, we could see some new messages, but I haven't fired up Instagram. But if we look at Twitter, guys, we can see messages that were sent as early as 2 hours ago, right? And once we get messages back, like here, we actually get responses back, and then we can fire off DMs. And actually, this response pretty cool here. So I send out the message. He says, how did you get to my account? I said, you liked one of my tweets. He says, nice automation, which is pretty cool. So yeah, guys, I just wanted to show you that end-to-end workflow is working. And now you guys got to get to building, because it's go time, baby. And you guys have access to all this in the academy. So good luck, and I'll see you in the next one.